On February 28, 2026, the world awoke to the stunning news. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader for 36 years, was dead. The announcement sent shock and disbelief rippling across the globe. For nearly 4 decades, Khamenei had been the unyielding face of Iran, a figure whose influence reached far beyond his country's borders. His sudden death was not just the end of a leader, but the collapse of an era that had shaped the Middle East for a generation. His death wasn't from natural causes, but the result of a sudden, precise military strike at his fortified Tehran compound. The attack was swift, calculated, and devastating, shattering the illusion of invulnerability that had surrounded Iran's leadership for so long. In a matter of moments, the heart of the regime was left in ruins, and the world was left to wonder who could have orchestrated such a bold move. Iranian state media confirmed the unthinkable, announcing his martyrdom in somber tones. The official narrative spoke of sacrifice and heroism, but the reality was far more brutal, a direct hit at the regime's core, exposing vulnerabilities that had long been hidden from public view. The news anchor's voice trembled as the nation watched in disbelief. The shockwaves were immediate and far-reaching, from Washington to Tel Aviv, Beirut to Baghdad. In capitals around the world, leaders scrambled to assess the fallout. The man who had shaped Iran's defiance of the West, who had survived countless crises and challenges, was suddenly gone. His absence left a power vacuum and a nation and a region teetering on the brink of chaos. For decades, a direct strike on Iran's leadership was unthinkable, a red line no one dared cross. The very idea had been a taboo, a boundary respected even in the darkest days of conflict. Now, that line was obliterated, and the consequences were impossible to predict. The world held its breath, waiting for the next move. The attack marked a seismic shift in Middle East geopolitics, plunging 88 million Iranians into uncertainty. On the streets of Tehran, anxiety and fear mingled with disbelief. Families gathered around televisions, searching for answers, while rumors and speculations spread like wildfire. The sense of security that had once existed was shattered overnight. As images of Khamenei's era faded from Iranian TV, the world scrambled to understand what had just begun. Analysts debated the motives and the message behind the strike, while ordinary Iranians grappled with the loss of a leader who had dominated their lives for so long. The uncertainty was palpable, and the future more unpredictable than ever. The era of Khamenei was over. In its place, a new, volatile chapter, written in fire, had begun. The world watched, holding its breath, as Iran and the Middle East stood on the edge of a new and dangerous dawn. The mystery didn't last long. Within hours, the world's attention was riveted by a sudden, dramatic announcement. President Trump stepped up to the podium, his words echoing across continents. He claimed responsibility for the audacious strike, revealing it was a joint operation with Israel, a move that stunned both allies and adversaries. "The tyrant is gone. The hour of your freedom is at hand," he declared, directly addressing the Iranian people and urging them to seize this pivotal moment. The message was clear. The world was watching, and change was possible. CENTCOM released dramatic, never-before-seen footage, missiles slicing through the darkness, explosions illuminating Tehran's skyline. The images were both awe-inspiring and terrifying, a stark reminder of the power now unleashed. This was no random act of aggression. It was a meticulously planned decapitation strike, codenamed Hour of Freedom, the result of years of covert intelligence, gathering, and strategic preparation. Israel's involvement signaled a rare and powerful unity. Together, the US and Israel presented a formidable front against Iran's regional ambitions and its ongoing nuclear threat, sending shockwaves through the Middle East. The operation showcased unmatched intelligence and military precision. Every detail was calculated, every move scrutinized, sending a chilling message to Iran's leadership. Nowhere was safe, and no secret was beyond reach. Trump's speech, paired with the relentless footage, was a psychological strike as much as a military one, meant to paralyze Iran's regime and ignite hope among its people for a new future. Around the globe, newsrooms buzzed with urgency. The world watched, breathless, as the rules of engagement in the Middle East were rewritten in real time, and the balance of power shifted before their eyes. The gamble was unstoppable, regime change by force, with the hope of sparking a revolution that could reshape the region's future. But as chaos erupted in Tehran's streets, the world wondered, would this bold move bring freedom or unleash uncontrollable turmoil? Iran's response was immediate and furious. Within hours, the streets of Tehran pulsed with anger and determination as the nation's military command scrambled into action. The world watched as the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, prepared to unleash its wrath. The IRGC, backbone of the regime and fiercely loyal to the supreme leader, launched massive retaliatory strikes before a new leader could even be named. Their response was not just swift, it was overwhelming, calculated to send a message that Iran's power would not be diminished. Air raid sirens blared across Israel as civilians scrambled for shelter. Missiles and drones struck Tel Aviv and US bases in the Gulf, shattering the night with explosions and chaos. The world's most volatile region was suddenly on fire. The IRGC's promise to turn the region into a graveyard for its enemies was no longer rhetoric. It was reality. Cities reeled from the devastation, and the world realized that Iran's threats were deadly serious. Iran's proxies, Hezbollah, Iraqi militias, the Houthis, were put on high alert, ready to ignite new fronts. Across the Middle East, allied groups mobilized, waiting for the signal to strike. The initial barrage was a warning. For every action, there would be swift, painful reaction. Iran's enemies now faced a new level of danger as the IRGC demonstrated its reach and resolve. The martyrdom of Khamenei became a rallying cry, uniting hardliners and proxies in vengeance. His death transformed into a symbol, fueling a wave of anger and solidarity across Iran and its allies. The region teetered on the edge of all-out war, with flashpoints erupting from Lebanon to the Persian Gulf. Every border, every checkpoint, every waterway became a potential battlefield. The IRGC's asymmetric warfare, missiles, drones, and proxies, was unleashed at full force. Their tactics blurred the lines between conventional and unconventional war, keeping adversaries guessing. The Middle East had crossed into a new, terrifying reality. Civilians fled through darkened streets, and the specter of wider conflict loomed over every city. The world braced for escalation, uncertain of what the next hours would bring as the balance of power in the region shifted before their eyes. Ordinary Iranians were thrust into chaos. Explosions in Tehran triggered panic, confusion, and fear. Social media showed highways jammed with cars fleeing the capital, while others huddled in subway stations seeking shelter. The familiar rhythms of daily life vanished. Now, survival was the only priority. With the regime in disarray, rumors of more strikes and harsher crackdowns spread. Families rushed to stockpile essentials, forming frantic lines at bakeries and gas stations. The threat wasn't just foreign bombs, but also internal chaos. Fear of the IRGC and Basij militia cracking down on dissent. The choice was stark: stay in a targeted city or flee into uncertainty. Trump's hour of freedom felt on the ground like an hour of terror. Iran's future had never felt more uncertain. Trump's strike was more than military. It was a high-stakes gamble for regime change. The theory: kill the supreme leader, and a popular uprising would topple the clerics and IRGC. Critics warned this underestimated Iranian nationalism and risked uniting the country against foreign attack. The CIA's own assessment outlined possible scenarios: revolution, hardliner takeover, or chaos. The risk was enormous: potential for regional war, economic shock, and thousands of lives lost. Yet, the administration believed the regime was brittle, ready to collapse with one hard push. Trump bet on the most optimistic outcome, rolling the dice on the future of the Middle East. The world could only watch and wait. The strike didn't just kill Khamenei, it targeted Iran's command structure. Mohammad Pakpour, IRGC ground forces commander, was also killed, leaving the military's leadership in chaos. The IRGC, a sprawling power controlling Iran's economy and proxies, was suddenly leaderless. The initial missile barrage was a reflex, but a sustained campaign required leadership now missing. The IRGC faced a succession crisis and the urgent need to prove its strength. Failure to respond decisively risked internal collapse, and emboldened rivals. The decapitation strike left Iran's most powerful institution reeling. Its next moves dangerously unpredictable. The future of the conflict now hinged on who would seize control. Khamenei's death shattered Iran's power structure, opening a dangerous vacuum. The constitutional process for succession was never meant for wartime chaos. With key military leaders dead, real power struggles erupted behind the scenes. Clerics versus IRGC hardliners. The CIA had warned the IRGC might seize the moment, installing one of their own or a puppet cleric. This could transform Iran from a theocracy into a military junta, escalating regional aggression. Would Khamenei's son, Mujtaba, make a play for power? Would the IRGC bypass the constitution entirely? Each scenario carried grave risks for Iran and the region. The battle for succession was now a battle for the soul of the Islamic Republic. Amid the chaos, a new voice emerged from exile, Reza Pahlavi, son of the last Shah. Suddenly, he was more than a historical footnote. He was a potential player in Iran's future. In a Washington Post op-ed, Pahlavi thanked Trump and outlined a vision for a secular, democratic Iran. He positioned himself as a facilitator, not a monarch, promising free elections and a new constitution. The Iranian diaspora was divided. Some celebrated, others distrusted his royal lineage. Inside Iran, his support was uncertain. Many young Iranians saw him as a relic, not a savior. Pahlavi's challenge convinced a skeptical nation that his vision is about choice, not restoration. The question, could he unite a fractured opposition and guide Iran toward democracy? The death of Khamenei and the US-Israeli strikes have pushed Iran and the Middle East to the brink. The stakes are enormous for Iran's 88 million people, for regional stability, and for the world economy. Will the IRGC escalate or will the regime fracture? Will the people rise up or rally around hardliners? Trump's gamble depends on ordinary Iranians whose motivations are complex and unpredictable. The path to democracy is fraught with peril. Civil war, military dictatorship, or just maybe a new beginning. The power vacuum could be filled by the IRGC, chaos, or a peaceful transition. As of March 1st, 2026, no one knows what comes next. One thing is certain: the Middle East has entered a new, dangerous era.